from this original steering box to one of those other OEM racks is the plan. It's been a minute, but we're back with an update. Not a big update, but at least we'll let you know where we're at on the Mercedes project. Let me show you what we got going on. As you guys know by one of my last posts, steering box in this location was an issue with exhaust going back. Like I said, yes, up forward headers, front exhaust, possibly turbo was an option, but again, have a turbo LS car and want to do something different. So what I'm doing is trying to do a power steering swap, and I'm taking my time because I want to find what's going to be the best option. This was a Mustang 2 rack. Again, a buddy let me borrow this just for a mock-up. Not going to work. A lot of people have said W210 Mercedes rack will work, which is what this is. And I think it would work. I do like the mounts being on the front side of the rack, considering the cross members here, and would make fabricating a bracket easy. But I think a lot of people that use this rack are also not doing an LS swap and a bagged car at the same time. The distance these mounts are, almost 2 inches, keeps this rack away from the cross member that much more. So before I settled on this, I hopped on the old marketplace like we all do, and I grabbed a Mark IV Volkswagen rack, also a rear steering rack. This specifically one is out of a Jetta, but from what I understand, they're all interchangeable. The R32. The R32 is interchangeable. It is a quicker ratio rack. Now, I bought this one just for mock-up, so this isn't the one we're going to be using. As you can see here, and if you know the Volkswagen world also, these racks are meant to sit flat on top of a cross member, which would point this straight up, which isn't going to work. But I have it in there now, just sitting on some things temporarily. I have it at an angle, that way this steering shaft is pointed towards the steering column shaft, which we can make something work there. I'm not worried about that. I think this is going to be for now, the route I'm going to pursue here a little farther. As you can see, I have it angled, and these mount from the bottom. So that allows us to get the steering rack that much closer to the cross member here. And the reason I want that as close to the cross member as possible is, like I said, I'm using a GTO front sump oil pan. So the shallowest part of the pan is right here. So we need the rack and the cross member as tight as possible to be in that shallow spot. And again, I'm trying to set the engine as low as possible in here because I do want the option of an LSA or a Hellcat supercharger down the road on top. So I'm worried about hood clearance. So with this one, it's sitting in there pretty low. It's just slightly above the cross member there. I had the engine in here, fit everything up. At this point, I'm going to pull the rack back out, and these 3 bosses here were just to mount a heat shield. And as you can see, that's all but a 1/2 inch there that I can wipe off and bring the engine down another 1/2 inch. And then after getting rid of those, and same thing with these studs here were for a heat shield, knock those off. And then we'll get the rack back in where it's at now, and the motor set back in, and see where we're at. So hopefully this is going to be the solution. We'll see. Don't really have a time frame to get this thing done. Obviously, I want to keep moving on, but I'm not going to rush. Definitely power steering rack swap. It's nothing I want to rush. And I don't want to get rid of the idea of the supercharger just yet. Obviously, I could put either of those racks in, lift the motor up slightly, and I could still fit a truck intake probably. There's that much room in there. But from what I understand, Hellcat is around 13 inches tall from the valley cover to the top, and an LSA from the valley cover to the top, depending on the lid, is about 11 inches. So we'll see. We're going to keep working on this rack, go from there, and I'll be back with an update. Also, with the rack being that low, I think I'm going to use some spacers that I got here. These are from Spoon Performance. These are specifically for an F-body car. But they seem to have the same degree taper, and it allows almost 3 inches to raise or lower the tie rod. We're trying to avoid bump steer. So once we get the rack in, we'll get these in, get everything lined up, see what happens. So I'll be back with some updates shortly. Thanks for checking in. What if those 4L80 hips don't fit the factory Mercedes trans tunnel? Meet my friend. I think that'll persuade the 4L80 to fit in the trans tunnel. Who wants a Mercedes update? It's been a little while. We were a couple videos ago checking out steering racks, what's going to work, newer Mercedes rack, Volkswagen rack, Mustang 2 rack. But before I could go any farther, I thought I should bolt the 4L80 up to the 6-liter and also see how that's going to fit in the trans tunnel as far as where I can put the engine and what degree, because that's going to affect ultimately how the rack fits as well. So, of course, when I bolted the 4L80 on to the LS, trans tunnel fitment became an immediate issue. But let me show you what I did there. That's what I've been messing with in the... Ultimately, what I did was took where the trans tunnel right here meets the floor, and right under there was a floor support brace, which I got rid of that and then made a slice in the floor on both sides of the car and used a porta power and a block of wood to bend that trans tunnel inward. And I probably went almost 1.5 to 2 inches and then re-welded to the floor. And then it's going to be a little hard to see, but I took, you can kind of see there, 1.5 inch square tube and ran it up front, and it ties into the front frame rail up there on either side, which ultimately, as you can see there, then I can make a trans cross member out of that as well as support the floor. So that took some time, multiple times out. Don't even want to tell you how many times I had this engine in and out. Checking fitment, because I can't go too wide because there's HVAC ducts on either side of the trans tunnel that I want to keep in there. So I will probably have to modify those a little bit, but I think it's enough that I'll be able to do it. But you can... Got the engine and trans in here. It's sitting pretty close to where I think I'm going to start making mounts. As you can see with the laser there, it's level. And then I have an angle finder on there. See what angle the whole engine and trans combo is at. But right now, as well, sitting in there loosely, it's kind of dark, but that's a Mark IV Volkswagen steering rack in there that I believe is going to work for us. I got room for clearance to the oil pan and the lines that come off the rack right there. And then I also have, this is the factory lower knuckle that attaches the steering rack to the steering column. And this is a little big and bulky, a little long, but just so you get an idea, if I were to attach that there, and you can see it pretty much lines up with the factory Mercedes knuckle. Obviously, I'll have a swivel on either end that'll help that, but I think we're going to be able to make that work, guys. Gonna have to take a break here because we got to get this ready for its yearly trip to Ocean City, Maryland for Cruise Week. That means, yes, even though it's a patina car, a little bit of cleanup, change oil, spark plugs, just kind of give everything a look over. Got about roughly 4 hours there and back to Ocean City, Maryland. And you know we're going to be cruising for 4 days. So we're going to give it a look over, make sure we're good to go on that. And then once I feel confident that's ready for the trip down, we'll hop back on this, start making mounts for the engine and the transmission. And then after that, the steering rack, make mounts for that. And then once we have mounts and everything's mounted, we can get the trans tunnel finished up as far as welding, seam sealing, painting, and then we'll go from there. I got to finish going through wires, clean up the engine bay. You know how it goes. One thing leads to another. But stay tuned. We're still moving along. Not a lot of updates, but I'll try and keep them coming.